Welcome to the 2020 Virtual Candidate Forum. Our desire is to create informed voters by giving the Plant City community an opportunity to meet every candidate on their ballot.
At the Greater Plant City Chamber of Commerce, we are a connector and convener in the community of current and rising leaders. When we all work together, we are Plant City Strong.
This event would not be possible without community involvement. We would like to thank Tampa Electric, Fried Egg Productions, South Florida Baptist Hospital, the Hillsborough County Farm Bureau, and the many other generous supporters.
Without further ado, let's hear from this candidate.
Good morning. My name is Arlie Smood. I'm a member of the Greater Plant City Chamber of Commerce, and I have the pleasure of serving on the Government Affairs Committee. Our committee has prepared a few questions for every candidate on the ballot, running for a position that will represent residents of the Plant City community. Today, I'm here with Jessica Vaughn, who's running for School Board Member District 3. Morning, Jessica.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. What an honor.
It's a pleasure. We can jump in by just giving us a little bit of background. Tell us about yourself.
Great, thanks. My name is Jessica Vaughn. You might have seen my signs around Plant City. We've been getting signs out. I am running for school board because, one, I'm a certified teacher who graduated from USF in 2010 with my degree in elementary education. I taught in the classroom for a couple years, and then I had my son who's 7. And once I had him, I started substitute teaching, and I just love substitute teaching. I love being able to go into all the different classrooms, be a media specialist one day, be a PE coach the next day, go to all the different schools. So for the last 6 years, I've been subbing. I'm also an elected member to my CDD board. So in my area, we have, in my community, the developer built in extra taxes. So there's a board elected publicly to manage those extra taxes. So I manage a $5 million budget for my community, and I've done that for the last 4 years. I'm also a community organizer, so I've done a lot of things around issues in my community and started organizations from the ground up. And I'm also a parent, like I said, of a 7-year-old. He's neurodiverse, so at the front of my platform is supporting neurodiverse students, which means kids on the spectrum, kids who have ADHD. A lot of times, unfortunately, they fall through the cracks of our school because a lot of our curriculum is geared toward neurotypical learners. So as a parent, as a community organizer, as somebody who's a certified teacher and passionate about education, and someone who manages a $5 million budget, I felt like it was a good time to run for the school board. Our school board needs a lot of help. And also at the front of my platform, aside from safety, overall holistic safety within our schools, is making our board more accessible and transparent so that parents and teachers and support staff feel very connected to the board. They know what's happening in our schools. We have good communication. So that's kind of what I'm running on and what got me to start my campaign in the first place.
Great. Well, you touched on this a little bit, but if you want to elaborate on any specifics of why you're running for office.
Yes. So again, I feel like, one, unfortunately, a lot of times the school board is used as a springboard for people to start their political career. So a lot of times we have people on the board who haven't been in the classrooms, they don't really understand education, they might have some budgeting experience, and that's great because one of the things is managing the budget, but there are so many aspects of really understanding education and politics in general, from Robert's Rules of Order to, all of the infrastructure and politics to really make you successful. Aside from that, I've built such a broad coalition within my community, from other elected officials to community organizers to parents to teachers, who really all kind of urged me to run and felt that I would be a good fit on the board. And I've been involved getting other candidates elected for so long that I felt it was kind of time to put my money where my mouth is. I'm always like, why don't we have more good candidates? And it's because it's really hard to run a campaign, and it takes a lot. So I thought it was kind of time to throw myself in that situation.
That's great. Well, what specific ideas, you touched on a few, but what specific ideas do you have to help improve Plant City area schools specifically?
Well, one of the things I think is a concern when I'm looking at different parts of my district is the development in rural areas. And especially when we're talking about the kind of infrastructure that they're looking at building when they build communities, and then within the communities, they have to build schools. And unfortunately, a lot of time developers aren't prioritizing really strong infrastructure on these schools. So they might build a development in a place where it doesn't have the roads and infrastructure to support that. And they're looking at putting a school where there's going to be a parental pickup line on a one-lane road with giant ditches on the side of it, which is going to be a complete nightmare. Anybody who has, children now understand what a nightmare the parental pickup line is. And if you have a one-lane road, it's going to be a nightmare navigating that. So making sure that when we're developing in rural areas, we're doing it responsibly and we're building the right infrastructure and not just doing it quickly with, just thinking about profit margins in mind. That's one of the ways. Also, when we talk about safety, that's another issue, making sure that all of our classrooms and all of our buildings are safe, up to code, that they have working air conditionings, that the drinking water is safe. When you look at what we've tested in our schools recently, the water is questionable, and we have to maintain testing the water to make sure the water is safe. Really supporting the school staff and the teachers within our areas are important. A lot of times there's a huge amount of focus on teachers and they're the number one most important contact, but there's also student aides. There's people, aides that help with students who have disabilities. There's bilingual instructors that we need. So making sure that we have a robust support staff that feels supported to make sure we're supporting our students as well. So these are some of the areas that I think definitely Plant City, I would imagine, would be interested in.
Absolutely. What's a challenge our school district faces that you want to improve?
Oh, there's so many. How much time do I have? No.
8 more minutes.
The number one challenge that we just have to be realistic about is the budget. That's always our challenge. No matter how many great ideas we have or what we want to accomplish, if we don't have the money to do it, it doesn't matter. These good ideas don't matter. And if anyone's been paying attention, we just realized that our last budget meeting, we have a $1 million deficit in our budget just starting off. That's not talking about how much money we're going to lose because of COVID from the state and what that's going to look like, plus how much money we have to spend in order to try to make our students safe and provide and our teachers safe. So figuring out where we can get more money and how we can get that is got to be a number one priority, and looking at places where we're spending too much money. I mean, I'm not trying to be critical, but the truth is we just passed a motion to purchase $3.8 million reading software. That's going to be $11 million over the life of the contract, in schools where we already have reading software and where we don't have reading coaches. Reading coaches are going to be the number one way that we improve literacy in our areas. You need one-to-one contact, people who can teach phonetic awareness. A reading software should be a supplement to a robust reading program that we already have, and we don't. And when we look at some of the special positions that have been created within internally, when you look at, people in administration who are making $150,000 a year for some specialized jobs when we can't even pay our teachers, these are all ways we can reevaluate the budget to make sure that we're prioritizing what's important, as well as looking at some of the federal loans that are being offered at either low interest rate or with the possibility they might be forgiven, kind of wondering whether those are a better option than the loans that we have right now to increase our budget, or always we need to look at how we're making our money work for us. Also, we can't deny, how important COVID is and what that's going to look like. That's like the number 2 crisis that's facing us, and you have so many different people who have different needs. You have parents who have immunocompromised people at home, or they're immunocompromised, and the idea of sending their students back to school is life or death. And then you have parents who don't have the option of not sending their children to school. That's childcare, so that they can go to work and support their family. And without being able to go to work, they can't even pay their rent. So trying to figure out really and prioritizing safety, how we can, get our students back to school, how we can manage this crisis realistically has got to be something that we prioritize right off the bat. I know there's been this huge mask divide, which is really strange to me. But if we're sending students to school without face shields or without masks, if all of our teachers get sick, at the same time and they get, pulled out of class, we don't have enough substitute teachers in the average year to meet all of our needs. We're not going to even be able to offer a brick and mortar option if we don't have the teachers in the classroom because they're all sick at the same time. So as much as we want to give everybody choice, because that's important, we also have to be realistic about what we're facing and making sure that we're prioritizing our students, our support staff, and our teachers, because if they're not there, it doesn't really matter. We're out of options. So those are kind of the two most pressing, I would feel.
So if you are elected, of all these things that you described, which is the number one? Which is the top priority for your first term in office?
That's really hard because, again, safety is at the top of my priority, so addressing COVID. But again, if we don't have the money to do it, it doesn't really matter. So I feel like they're holistically connected, but obviously the budget, right? Obviously managing and making sure that we can afford the things that we want to do. That's the whole job of the school board, is really to make sure that we can manage the budget, to hire the superintendency, to set policies, and they're all holistically created. So if we have, enough money to do what we need to do and prioritize, then we can focus on other things. So as much as COVID is right up there, I would have to say making sure we manage the budget correctly and that we're funding it and that we're, making sure that the money goes appropriately should be number one.
Well, that's all for the questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to add for viewers to know?
Well, I'd like to add that, again, one of the strengths that I feel like I have is I've built this broad coalition of support. I've gotten some pretty big endorsements. 2 county commissioners have endorsed me. A city council member has endorsed me. I've gotten a lot of individual support. One thing I think is really good is when you're trying to figure out who's supporting a candidate, there's, financial records online of every donation that they get. So I think going to a candidate's financial records and see who's supporting them is a huge key to figuring out who they're going to be fighting for or working for when they get elected. One of my opponents actually had a conflict of interest from some of the money he's been accepting and has had to step down from a board that he's appointed to, whereas I have so many individual contributions from teachers, from, everyday workers, from people in my community who know, my integrity and what a hard worker I am, who really want to support me. I have so many small donor donations. And I think that really shows, where you're able to build community support and where your loyalties are. One thing I'm not a candidate who's for sale. I'm here to work for the people. I'm interested in being a civil servant, not just a politician, and really being reflective of my community. So if there's anybody who's watching this that wants to ask me a question, who wants to put something that's, a priority, who wants to talk to me about an issue, feel free to contact me. You can go to my website, www.jessicavaughn.us. You can fill out a form. My phone number's on there. Call me. I really want to talk to everybody and know what your issues are, because I can't really reflect and be a good civil servant if I don't know in every part of my district what the issues are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, it's an honor. I really appreciate it. I know it's a lot of work to organize to keep voters and, up to date and engaged and educated. So thank you for all that you do. And thanks for all the people who are watching this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks. Have a good day. Stay safe.
You too.
Thanks.